Elections are around the corner, and thanks to identity politics, the issue of illegal migrants is a major one for all political parties. So, when 7 Rohingya men were identified to be sent back to Myanmar today, it became an extraordinary piece of news. I say extraordinary because the 7 men who were handed over had come in 2012 and were going to be the first batch of people to be accepted by Myanmar as their own. India's estimate of Rohingya in our country is 40,000. And last year, the government made it very clear that we couldn't accommodate any more refugees. This elicited major censure from the diplomatic community and the UN. But India was firm. It told Supreme Court that central government has inputs indicating linkages of some of the unauthorized Rohingya immigrants with Pakistan-based terror organizations, that Rohingya are indulging in illegal anti-national activities, mobilizing fronts through Hawala, and that Rohingya figure in the suspected sinister designs of ISIS and other extremist groups. However, and this is a big however, there seems to be no concrete evidence of any such terror links yet. Only suspicion. So the men were handed over just after Supreme Court dismissed an intervention by senior advocate Prashant Bhushan. They felt that if Myanmar has recognized the men as their own, what was the problem? Now Prashant Bhushan says the problem is that it is against the United Nations Charter. So what does this charter say? Well, it says that India, as a signatory to the Bangkok Principles on Refugee Treatment signed in 1966, that no person can be expelled if there is danger he faces on account of race or religion. That is the international treaty that India is signatory to. And it isn't just Prashant Bhushan who says this. The UNHCR representative slammed us on Wednesday by saying that forcible return could constitute refoulement. Refoulement violates international law, and Indian government has legal international obligations. Prolonged detention of this kind is prohibited, and such treatment could fall under the category of inhuman and degrading treatment. So that's what the UN has said. What's India's response been to this? Well, India has first said that we have a long tradition of welcoming refugees. So UNHCR shouldn't talk about our NCR internal processes. And moreover, they said that these men are being sent back. They were willing to be repatriated. Well, were they? NDTV's Sanjay Chakraborty spoke with them, and here's what they said about their expressions and feelings about going back to a country that is war-torn and has a lot of conflict.
ये इंडियन गवर्नमेंट बर्मा भेज रहा है और बर्मा में आपको मारपीट चालू है ना, डर नहीं लगता? और क्या बोलना है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को? आप
नहीं ये कोई डरने का जरूरत नहीं है। हम लोग का देश है, हम लोग देश में लौट रहे हैं, वही खुशी है।
अभी तो बर्मा से पार हो रहा है, इंडिया से बर्मा पार हुआ है।
क्यों, मतलब आपको क्या कहना है इस बारे में?
हम कहना है, हम कुछ कहना नहीं है, हम कहना है भारत से हम लोग को बर्मा को समझा दिया है, इसलिए हम खुशी है।
भारत में आया है काम करने से, हम जिनमें हमको सिलसिले में हमको पकड़ लिया, हमको जेल में दे दिया है। अभी 100 साल जेल कट के अभी हम आया है जंग। अभी जेल में जाने के लिए हम आ रहा है।
तो आपको डर नहीं लगता बर्मा आ गया, मारपीट चल रहा है?
नहीं, मारपीट अभी घर जाने के लिए हमारा सरकार अभी देश में ले जाएगा बोला है।
आप खुशी है?
खुशी।
So this statement very, very important, because UNHCR said you're forcing people to go back to a violent place, and India has said, and it seems from our interviews, which were given of course in custody, that yes, it is with their willingness. But the BJP seems to indicate that all such illegal men will take the same route Amit Shah at a public meeting in Rajasthan has said that such illegal immigrants will be taken out of voters list and the process of sending them back has started today. So he seemed to indicate that it is just the beginning, 7 today, all of them tomorrow. The question, of course, that we're asking on Reality Check is, will 40,000 Rohingya people willingly go back to Myanmar? And that's what we are ascertaining as well. And to talk about that, in studio we have BJP's Rajesh Sharma. We have the Amnesty's senior campaigner in India, Abhir VP, joining us from Bangalore. And we also have MV Krishna Rao, the former DG, joining us from Hyderabad, MV Krishna Rao. And we also hope to be joined by Prashant Bhushan, senior advocate, who is the petitioner trying to look for an intervention in this case today in Supreme Court, which wasn't, of course, accepted by Supreme Court. Rajesh Sharma, if I can start with you, we just heard the statements over there, and we also saw and brought to our viewers what India has said in response to the various objections and the kind of issues that have been brought up by the UN. Now, India said, MEA's statement says that they are being sent back because they willingly agreed to go back. That obviously won't be the case with 40,000 people. So how is the BJP saying this?
I'm saying these are the ones, it is not a human right issue, because under the Foreign Act, these persons were arrested in the year 2012, I think. And since then they went to jail. And the illegal immigrants, if you take it as some calculations say it is around 40,000, some calculations say it is around 50,000. If I take it even to 40,000, the UN status is given to 16,000. Rest, I can say 24,000 are the ones who are illegal immigrants. They don't have any status, and it is totally a security threat to the country, and definitely they will be deported. No one can stop it, and no one should stop it. There should not be any vote bank politics on all these fronts. It is a thing of national security and national sovereignty at the foremost thing. Bodh Gaya, there were links of them. Dalai Lama threat, there was links which were found. In Jammu camp, there were links which were found with Rohingyas. So you cannot deny that
none
they don't
of the
have
ones that you mentioned are ones that have been upheld by court. There were initial reports, but the police said
might be an initial
none
report,
of them have been.
But at some, if there is some sort of even the way they think that it can be, there is possibility, then also it is a threat. Why a refugee who is an illegal refugee?
We'll talk about the illegal and the terror connections in just a bit, and also with Mr. Krishna Rao. But first, I would just want to ask you, you said that 16,000 of them are the only ones with I-cards. The rest of them are illegal migrants. However, we are signatory to various laws which says that part of our constitution, it's our constitution, which says, even Article 21, which part of it is that we don't send people back to areas, even if they are illegal. If they've illegally come in, then it's a humanitarian thing that you don't send them back to areas which are a threat.
I can say there should
and
not,
Bangladesh has been accepting
there should not be any vote bank politics. They need to be sent back, and the whole of Northeastern
corridor. You say no vote bank politics.
Yeah.
However, this issue keeps coming up in all your public meetings. So the only one looking at it as vote bank politics is the BJP.
It is vote bank politics from other side if someone is objecting.
No,
it is
right
totally,
now it's
totally
only
vote
human
bank
rights
politics.
activists.
Indian resources cannot be used by illegal migrants. We cannot go for it that the persons who are not authorized, who are totally illegal, cannot be here.
Abhir VP.
And the ones who are convicted and have been in jail.
Okay, Abhir VP, India says, and we just saw video evidence of that. We spoke to various people, all the, three at least, we showed those 3 statements of those boys who have been sent back today. And of course, India says they'll send back more. When UNHCR said that you can't forcibly send people back, these men, when NDTV asked them, they said no, they were happy to go back, they were happy to be accepted. So is that still a violation?
Well, even if they are happy to go back, India must consider the fact that nearly 80% of the population from the northern Rakhine state have left Myanmar. So it's clear that in Amnesty International's report that the Myanmar military is conducting ethnic cleansing in Myanmar. So the lives of these 7 people are at risk, and I think that's a responsibility that we have here. And the one thing that I would want to point out are the 7 who were forcibly returned to Myanmar. They were not charged for being a security risk. They were charged because they were found them to be illegal. The point here is that even if you think that there are some Rohingya who pose a security risk, have some procedures with UNHCR to find out who these people are. I mean, you cannot brush one entire community, women and children has security risk. You are sending them back where they are more likely to be killed. I mean, this is something that we need to look into, and we cannot, the way we see it is a very dark day in Indian human rights today.
Prashant Bhushan is with us. Prashant Bhushan, when you were hearing it, and of course the court didn't accept the kind of intervention that you wanted from Supreme Court, but one of the things that you said in court today, when you brought up the issue of why these 7 shouldn't be taken back, you said, when the court asked, that it's untrue to say that Myanmar government has accepted that. What makes you say that? Because that's exactly what the MEA statement says, and that's what all authorities have said, and that's the reason why they seem to be handed over.
You see, the Myanmar government has not accepted the Rohingya as citizens of Myanmar. This was one of the main bones of contention, that they were not willing to accept them as citizens. They were not given citizenship of Myanmar, and therefore they were essentially stateless citizens there. The UN, the special investigation report of the UN Human Rights Council, which just came about 1 month ago, says very clearly in so many words that the situation in Myanmar today is not at all conducive for sending the Rohingyas back to Myanmar, where they are likely to face torture and perhaps even death. That's what the Human Rights Watch also said, pointing out that those who have been repatriated to Myanmar recently, those Rohingyas, they have been tortured and some of them have even been killed. So therefore, now it's true that the government said in their affidavit that these people themselves want to go back, but they had been in detention for the last 6.5 years. They have not been allowed any contact with any outside people, including lawyers, etc. They don't know what is going on there. So therefore, I had said that let the UN High Commissioner for Refugees interview them to find out whether they are aware of what the situation there is, and to ascertain whether they really want to go back to Myanmar in this condition. If they really want to go back, then certainly they can go back, but at least some independent person should go and speak to them and find out whether there is informed consent on their part to go back or not.
So very interesting. You're saying that the MEA's contention is based on half information, because these people have been there and have been in prison, so they don't know what the situation really is. Does the fact that they came in 2012, Mr. Bhushan, and what the government is also saying is there were very strong negotiations, backchannel negotiations with Myanmar, where India convinced them to take that back. So doesn't that make the government's point very strong that, look, this is happening, this is not someone just being randomly sent back, that actually India is claiming this is quite a victory?
No, India may claim it to be a victory because the Indian government, or this Indian government, is saying that all these Rohingyas must be repatriated, when every international human rights body, including the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights, the UN Human Rights Council, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, each and every body, international human rights body, is saying that there has been total genocide of Rohingyas in Myanmar, and that the conditions are still certainly not conducive to send them back, that they would face torture and perhaps death there. Then in such circumstances, for the Indian government to claim some diplomatic victory or some victory by getting the Myanmar government to accept them. Myanmar government accepts them and thereafter tortures them and kills many of them.
Okay, so
This is no way to deal with refugees.
So I'm going to ask Rajesh Sharma to respond to that in just a bit, but I just wanted to get in because, one of the things that you raised, Rajesh Sharma, was the fact that, the reason why India's taken this position in Supreme Court of not accepting them is because of the so-called terror links. I just want to say again that NDTV has done various reports and reporting on this particular issue, and there seems to be no evidence that we've found a terror links, but for some reason the Indian agencies say that they believe that it makes us vulnerable to terror attacks. So for that, Mr. Krishna Rao, I just want you to come in over here. One of the recent things building up, because the government gave a Supreme Court affidavit where they talked about these terror things. What they've also sent in most recently, just before the 7 being sent back, is of course the growing threat of Rohingya in South India. And they in fact sent in a September 26 confidential letter written to divisional railway commissioners saying that there's a mass movement of Rohingya to Kerala, 14 trains being used for mass movement to Kerala, and on October 2nd the family which was detained there and then sent back. The thing is, Mr. Krishna Rao, I wanted to ask, how is it that the government talks about this mass movement, however only one family is detected, and the government keeps talking about this terror threat when there really doesn't seem to be any credible open threat which the government has convinced any courts of either?
Okay, the problem of Rohingyas has many perspectives. As far as the 7 people who have been repatriated today to Myanmar, the legal perspective is that they were in prison for having entered India without any visa or valid travel documents, and therefore an offence under the Foreigners Act, and therefore they were in judicial custody. They were in a jail in Silchar. And since the government of Myanmar has agreed that they were indeed residents of Myanmar, they were willing to take them back, and therefore they were sent back. That is one part. Now the second part is, there are estimated to be some 50,000 Rohingyas in India, almost all of them illegal migrants. Whether all of them are susceptible to anti-Indian activities or they pose a security threat to the sovereignty and security of India is something that has to be decided on a case-to-case basis. How can we just classify an entire group of 50,000 people as something who are posing a threat to India's security? If there are any, there are different laws which have to be invoked, and suitable action under the law has to be taken. You also quoted about Article 21, which is fortunately, as per the Indian Constitution, is not restricted to the citizens. Any human being who happens to be on the soil of India, he is entitled to that protection on Article 21. What does it say? No person can be deprived of his life or personal liberty except in accordance with law, except in accordance with procedure established by law.
Right.
Now, what has been done today is very much in accordance with the procedure established by law. So, as far as the Kerala thing is concerned, since 1/3 of the Kerala population are Muslims, and since there were some, especially from the districts of Calicut and northern districts, who have joined the ISIS and migrated to Afghanistan, and unfortunately they died in some bomb blast there. So there could be some credible material, but we can't classify all 50,000 as posing a threat to security of India.
No, it's very significant, Mr. Krishna Rao, you say that. As a man who is from the security force, you've served as DGP, and it's significant that you're also saying upholding. So you have Mr. Krishna Rao here, Rajesh Sharma, who is from the police, he is a man, from the security forces. Even he upholds Article 21, our right to life, our rights, and what our constitution says about anyone. It doesn't have to be a citizen. That there, you said the fact that they're illegals doesn't give them this refugee status or protection of their human rights. However, that's being, completely contradicted over here, not just by the lawyers, but a former police officer.
I can say very categorically, India is not world's refugee capital. India is not.
They are entitled to human rights.
India
they are entitled to human rights.
But it is not refugee capital of the world. It is not Dharamsala for all the illegal immigrants who come here and who are convicted under the Foreign Act and who are illegally staying here. And if Mr. Prashant Bhushan says that they are stateless here, stateless there, they are also stateless here. And if Myanmar is accepting, we need to send them. There is no reason there that there is some human right violation. And I can say very categorically, and it should be done.
So you don't think there's any contradiction in India standing up to be counted amongst the, civilized
I can say
countries across the country?
The ones who are convicted, definitely they need to be sent back. And one thing you told that you have done,
even convicts,
checked whether they are involved in some crime or not. I can say media trial cannot go, it will be done by the court.
It's not media trial.
Yeah, so
we followed up on all the kind of allegations, and they don't seem to decide there. Yes, so the court hasn't decided that anyone has terror links.
The court will decide it is pending, so definitely the court will decide in future. So definitely I can say that the ones who are convicted, the ones who are into jail, the ones who are illegal, and there are a huge number of it, they cannot, they are putting permanent residence there.
Mr. Krishna Rao, here's the thing. Okay, the BJP's point is very clear. Mr. Krishna Rao, before I go back to Prashant Bhushan, I just want to ask you, the claim now, we just want to do a reality check. Is it possible to send, even half of these 40,000 back to Myanmar, as the BJP is promising?
Every one of them will have to be acknowledged by Myanmar government as their residents. And the other thing is, everybody in India, whether he is a convict or not, whether he is an illegal migrant or not, is entitled to human rights. Human rights have nothing to do with citizenship. It has something to do whether he is a human being or not. If he is a human being, he is entitled to human rights.
And the possibility of Myanmar accepting every one of them?
That of course appears to be remote. See, these were people who came in 2012. Why will Myanmar take back so many of them?
Mr. Prashant Bhushan, a lot, I saw on social media, a lot of people reacting to it. They seem to feel the vindication of India's policy by Supreme Court's orders today. How do you respond to that?
Well, unfortunately, there are people who don't see Rohingyas as human beings. I mean, if they saw the Rohingyas as human beings who have had to flee for their lives from a situation of torture where village after villages were burnt, people were hacked to death, women were raped, it's been called a genocide by every human rights organization in the world, including 3 United Nations human rights agencies. If they feel that these people, that there is no such thing as refugees in the world, or that there should not be any law relating to refugees, they are saying that India has not signed the Refugee Convention. Firstly, why has India recently, the Indian High Commissioner to the UN said that despite the fact that we have not signed or ratified the Refugee Convention, we still abide by all our obligations towards refugees, etc.
Okay.
And if that is the case, then how can you, I mean, these are the sort of most deserving refugees in the world.
Sure.
They have been subjected to the worst possible genocide, and if you say that you will forcibly send them back to a place where they are imminently likely to suffer from torture or death, then certainly you have no humanitarian feeling left in you at all. And unfortunately, that is the situation with a lot of people who are in this government or people who are in the ruling party in this country today.
Abir VP, the Indian government of course says that they've responded to groups like yours, human rights organizations like yours, and also to the UNHCR with their comments today where they said that look, we have always upheld and looked after refugees. Isn't that a convincing reply?
When the Indian government says that,
well, if they have
that
always
the
looked after
Myanmar
refugees,
government
why are
has
they saying
welcomed
that they will send back
the refugees,
the Rohingyas?
You know, when the Indian government says that they have welcomed, when the Myanmar government says that they welcome the refugees, you have to understand that the International Criminal Court is conducting investigations for Myanmar for possible ethnic cleansing. You know, I mean, there's enough evidence to prove that Myanmar is killing these people. How can you expect the people who are killing them to welcome them back to the country? I mean, this is something that we have to understand.
Yes.
This Myanmar government who's saying that we are welcoming the Rohingyas, they are actually killing them. 80% of the population from North Rakhine State have fled since 2017.
Yes.
I mean, it's beyond words, you know. So how can we go by?
Yeah,
one comment. Basically, you would have heard of a lot of reports which came in that a lot of Hindus in Myanmar were killed by these Rohingyas.
Yeah.
Where were these all human rights activists on commenting on those things? These Rohingyas who were in Myanmar had killed several Hindus, and several reports have reported that.
Okay,
so
we're here
all
talking
these human
about,
rights persons who
I think that's just digressing.
things.
We're talking about what's happening now, and I think perhaps India has to decide, as with all these statements coming out from the UN and other international agencies, where India wants to stand when it talks about human rights as well, and it's standing one of the important issues as well. That's it on Reality Check. We'll be back again next week. Join us then. Goodbye. Thanks to all my guests. Goodbye.